So in this latest episode of the Non Operative podcast, we've got a guest here who's been through a pretty special experience in terms of being one of the first people to go through the cross-bracing protocol, which has provided remarkable results in defying the kind of previous perception that ACLs couldn't heal. I think 90% healing record, and including yours, Pep, your ACL is now
It is now healed, fully healed.
Which I was concerned about when I met you in the car park and you hobbled out of your car. And I was like, is this what healing really looks like? Which is the question I guess people ask, is like, well, what does healing mean to the degrees of it? But your knee is feeling good other than your recent
Yes, my knee
episode.
is feeling fully good. My knee feels great. It feels strong. I have no problems. What Tim's talking about is I actually had a fall yesterday, a cyclist crashing into me as I was going for a run, and I got hit for 6. So I've got a few bruises and grazes.
Yeah.
From that. But other than that, I'm really fit and well.
Yeah. So you're nearly a year post-injury.
Yes.
And could you just talk us through a bit about how you came about to actually having the cross-bracing protocol? Because obviously, I think less than 500 people at the time of recording have actually been through that process. So how did you end up being in the brace?
Well, I actually, we were skiing in Japan and I had a very minor collision. I was actually standing still on the side of the hill. We're working out where to go for the day. And
Are you going to name the culprit
Oh,
in broadcast?
I'm not sure I should. Yes, well, it was my husband that accidentally nicked the back of my ski, and I went backwards, and my skis were rolling backwards, and my knee caved in. So it was a very innocent, not a big accident at all. It just happened. And then we happened to be at a trauma conference, so he had a mate look at my knee that night, and he thought, yeah, she's probably done it.
Also mentioned probably what your husband...
Oh, yes. He is medical. He's an anaesthetist.
Yeah.
Yes. And
in good company when the incident happened.
Yeah.
Except for the company being...
Yes, that's right. He is a very calming person when there's injury. He's actually very helpful to be around, so I have to give him credit there.
Yep.
Yes, so we had that night we were in a little place called Rizitsu, and a couple of days later we went to Nisco, and I went to the physios there, and they were convinced I'd done it. Although we didn't bother doing an MRI, I thought we'd just get that done back in Melbourne. But with the physical test, they were, pretty sure I had done it. They put me in
and that was a straight ACL rupture?
Yes. They didn't think it was anything else, so straight ACL, and they put me in a brace, a similar brace to what they would use for the cross-bracing method. And they set the brace at 90 to 30 degrees because that's just what they'd been doing in Japan. And I think that had spontaneous heal with setting the brace at that degree. And then when I got back to Melbourne, we did the MRI to have it confirmed. And I just happened to know a radiologist, and I was having a chat to him about my scan, and he said to me, look, there's this trial going on, and by the look of it, your rupture looks really good for it, but you'd have to speak to them. Try and get on to them. I can give you their name and number. Give them a call. So given I'd had previous ACL surgery on my other knee, I was keen to look at my options because I did find the surgery quite traumatic and painful and a very long road. So I just wanted to know what else was out there that could actually have a heal. I was convinced in my head at the time that I definitely wanted a healed ACL because a lot of the activities I like to still do ideally require an ACL. I play a lot of tennis, I do a lot of skiing, and I'd like to do, I do a lot of running, and more trail running would require an ACL ideally.
Yeah.
So I was keen to have a heal, but I was also keen to look at other options. And I rang the physio, and the physio got me to come in straight away because of the importance of the time that you get into the brace. They want you in the brace within 2 weeks of injury, and that may have changed. I'm not sure if it's gone down to 1 week, but at the time, I think at the time it was within 3 weeks of injury, but I think it's been brought into 2 now. And I got the brace on the cross-bracing method just under 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they set it to 90 degrees, locked at 90.
Yeah. And that's standard, right? So in ideal, for the optimal healing capacity, you'd have been locked into that.
Yes.
As soon as you'd...
So mine was slightly different. It was locked into 90 because I'd already been in the 30 to 90. I'd already been in the 30 to 90 for a couple of weeks while I was away in Japan. We decided we could lock it into 90 and go from there. And I was in 90 for 2 weeks. I think the normal program was 4 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think that's because I did the 90 to 30 to start with.
Because you'd already done the period before.
Yeah. So, and then after that we went 90 to 60 for a couple of weeks, then 90 to 40 degrees, then 90 to 30, 90 to 20, 90 to 10. And
were you doing any sort of rehab during that period? Would they have you in and out of it doing activity? Or all in the brace, but obviously to the range of motion?
All in the brace. So while it was in 90 degrees, I could not take it out of the brace at all. Yeah. So everything was done with the brace on. So showering, walking around the house, I had a little knee scooter, so that was helpful.
I bet you missed that.
Oh, the kids missed that, actually, because they found it quite a bit of fun racing around the house on it, like indoor skateboard to them. But look, it was hard. When it was in 90, it was hard. It wasn't easy, but the benefit of it for me, there was no pain. I didn't have to take a day off work. And I did my physio. I was religious with physio. And I think with any ACL rupture, you have to be religious with your physio. If you don't do the work, it won't get better regardless.
Yep. And you can compare that because what you've mentioned there is like quite a challenging experience, obviously being locked in. And it was something that I considered, when I had mine my physio mentioned the cross-bracing. I think I was too late by the time we did it anyway. I was like, that sounds like really restrictive. But the reason I mentioned that is compared to post-operative, so you had surgery on your other knee, how would you describe it in comparison to that in terms of limiting of your lifestyle? Because obviously you've got to take a lot of precautions and a lot of limitations after surgery as well, right? Yeah.
I found the surgery a lot more traumatising. And I use that word because to me it was. I found it really painful. I spent the next month literally in bed and getting up to do my exercises when I had to. Yeah. I had help getting into the shower. My kids were a bit little at the time. I think my youngest was 4, and then...
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's...
And the girls were 5 would have been 9 and 10. So they were more needy of me, whereas this time round they were older and a lot more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
But the surgery I found painful for quite a lot of time. I was taking some good pain meds and I really knew I had to get off those quickly.
Right, yeah.
With the cross-bracing method, I actually found, yes, it was difficult being locked in the brace, but that was only 2 weeks, and then I had 2 weeks at the 90 to 60 where I was still using the knee scooter, but I could still get around. I took the girls to Chadstone shopping. I could still do everything.
Yeah, they weren't embarrassed for Mum.
They thought it was funny, actually. They saw the humour in it. They were taking selfies with me and posting them to their friends. And I could still go to work. I didn't miss a day of work.
Yeah.
I didn't take any Nurofen, any Panadol, nothing. And so it was more just annoying and frustrating, and the fact that I couldn't do my normal exercise, I found that frustrating.
Yeah.
But with the surgery, I was struggling. I was in bed. I was pain. I would wake up in pain. I would go to bed in pain. And look, I think I was unlucky because I've had friends that have gone through the surgery.
I was going to say, that sounds like you've had relative to, because I'm always really conscious of this podcast, even though I've called it the non-operative, is to not make it an anti-surgery.
No.
I've been through the same and didn't have the same kind of volume of kind of suffering that sounds like that you'd gone through there. But I guess that's one of the risks that it is. There's variables in terms of people's experiences with surgery.
Well, that's right. And a lot of my friends didn't go through what I'd been through. And I did have to go back in at 6 weeks and have an MUA, which is a manipulation under anaesthetic, because it wouldn't bend.
Right. Okay.
So I think I was unlucky in that sense. But I was unlucky enough that it did put me off having the surgery again if I didn't have to.
Yep.
But as I say, I mean, I would have, if this didn't work, I was probably inclined to go and have the surgery.
Yeah, yeah. So moving on, so you've come out of the brace and they've done a repeat MRI scan at, was it 3 months?
We did one at 3 months.
Yeah.
And that showed that it had joined, it had connected.
I bet that was a good feeling.
Oh, it was so exciting. I was positive, it felt good. But I still had that, unsure feeling as well, because I guess I'd focused my last 3 months of my life just on this knee.
Yeah.
So I really was hoping for a good result, and I was thrilled to find out that it was positive, connection there. And then we had another scan at 6 months just to show, to make sure it was still healed. I mean, it felt like it was, but I just... for me, I just wanted to know, and it was, and it did show a bit of thickening.
Yeah.
So it still looks good, and I was still working on the rehab, but it felt better and stronger as each month went by.
Yeah. Obviously, you can't compare. You didn't have an MRI before your injury, so you can't compare the thickness and the strength, obviously, to that. But was the kind of prognosis at that point that it has fully healed to pretty much maximum strength, that you can trust it now?
Yeah, I totally trust it.
Yeah.
In July, so the injury happened in January 2023, and then I came out of the bracing, must have been April. And then in about September, I did try some cross-country skiing on it. The snow was in terrible condition, so I didn't want to try downhill because there was too many people and the conditions were awful. Whereas cross-country, you could get away from people and find a bit of soft snow. I did find that I did wear my brace doing it.
Yeah.
Because it was still early days, but I was just busting to have a turn. And then I was doing a lot of walking up at the snow from about July onwards. And I was using poles, and I used chains on my shoes to avoid slipping. But that got me pretty fit, walking up there.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
And that was really good walking physio. And then I started doing some running, probably September.
Yeah.
Just short little runs, 2Ks, 3Ks.
Yeah.
But I'm now back to doing longer runs.
Yeah. So you took it fairly, I don't know whether you class this conservatively, but from my perspective, so I've been through the non-bracing, non-operative rehab approach, and I was back running, I think probably 3.5 months maybe after my injury, and back playing sport a month later than that. But I pushed my physio pretty hard because I was very determined to play the same season as I got injured. But it sounds like the time scales are a bit more conservative and a bit more closely aligned to post-operative with bracing.
I think that's possibly true. I also think I was pretty wanting to be a little bit conservative about it.
Yeah.
As well, because I didn't want to have it snap and go through the process again.
Yep.
And also, I'd say I'm quite a bit older than you too, Tim, so I've got to be a little bit more careful. So I probably didn't have as much enthusiasm to get back straight away, just because I didn't want it to re-snap.
No, you had a ligament. A lot of my attitude was, I don't have an ACL to rupture now.
Yeah.
So barring other collateral
yeah.
damage, which like return to sport testing, which would prove wasn't a greater risk for me, I didn't have that concern. I was like, well, if I, now I damage my meniscus or do more damage to my MCL, well, maybe I'll have surgery at that stage. Like that was always my plan B. I guess same for you, but it's a bit different because you had such a exciting prognosis there. I should probably go get a repeat MRI and see if I had non-bracing healing, but then also partly of the mind that what if it shows I haven't got any healing, and then in my mindset is like clarity that you don't have a ligament there. There's been no reattachment. So we'll see. But I wanted to go back to your decision-making process. So you talked to us a bit through how the kind of opportunity came up and your motivation to try and find a way to not have surgery. But in terms of the influences around you, I mean, you obviously mentioned that your husband's in the medical industry, and people you talk to, I think this will speak to a lot of people listening, are surrounded by majority of the people are saying you need surgery, right? And that maybe you're getting a bit carried away by this opportunity. What was the information that you were surrounded by, particularly? I don't mean to pick on your husband; he's probably going to hate me up to listen to this. But I think it's important to cover that kind of sphere of influence that you have when you're making this decision, and how kind of difficult it can be to have a really set mindset.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult decision. You know a lot of people that have had successful surgery. We didn't know anyone who had successful knee bracing.
Yep.
So there were a lot of people saying, oh, it's unproven, you know, why don't you just see how you go with rehab, and then if you've got the instability, then look at having the surgery. But my point kept coming back thinking I wanted a healed ACL because I wanted to not have to wear a brace when I skied or not have to think about it. And I think there were a lot of people unsure about the decision making. I was, but I also, those people hadn't been through the surgery that I went through and my experience with that. So for me, it was a pretty easy decision to try this method. I did have people around me saying, well, if you do that method and it doesn't work, you're not just back to square one, you're behind where you started, because, you do lose muscle condition when you do lose a bit. You obviously try not to, but you're not as strong as you are at the start of the bracing period. That's the whole point of the rehab. You've got to try and stay strong.
Yeah.
So if it didn't work and then you're going back to start a rehab program on non-ACL, on non-surgery or doing the surgery, you're back.
Yeah, your
you're behind.
Atrophy is going to be even greater than
correct.
Where, I guess that's okay. Go back to the because I think what we're essentially looking at from a audience perspective is laying the three options that ultimately exist for most people. I mean, if cross bracing is available, people to choose is really surgery, cross bracing, or just straight rehab, right? And one of the pros of the rehab is as soon as the swelling subsides, or even whilst you've got the swelling there, is you're starting to reactivate those muscles. And once that swelling's gone, you're really aggressively doing it. So it's very much focused on building the muscle. And then if you do have a kind of episode of instability that provokes you to want to have surgery, then from a muscular perspective, you're in a good condition to start that rehab in a decent place after surgery, where you're saying, if you come out the brace and then have a bad episode of instability or cause some other injury and then you decide surgery, you've created a really long pathway, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah, which is why probably you want to take a bit longer, expose yourself to a bit less risk, and really focus.
Yeah. So for me, it was an obvious decision because I'd already been through the surgery on my previous knee. If I hadn't been through that surgery, I probably, to be honest, would have just gone, seen how I went, and then probably ended up with the surgery. I'm not sure. But I think I didn't know enough about the non-surgery methods to think about just doing the physio rehab.
Do you think you would have taken So obviously you're quite fortunate to have that opportunity to be part of the trial, and if that had come up and you hadn't been through the surgery experience that you'd had, do you think you would have still chosen to give it a go, or do you think you would have gone for surgery?
Depends if I had knee instability.
Yeah.
So with my first one, when I did go through the knee instability, I had an accident in August and I didn't have the surgery until October because I had other injuries at the time to get better before the surgery. But I did have incidences where my knee just caved in. So I knew surgery was the option. So I sort of had it in my head that I needed the surgery.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't think, well, that I needed it for one knee, surely I would just need it for the other. So that's probably why I didn't even think about just doing a non-operative method.
Had you started rehab for that? Or it sounds like you had a bit else going on. So would you have been rehabbing when those episodes were
Yes,
happening?
I was, but I had an accident and I'd broken, a couple of ribs and, had some other things going on. So I was mainly concentrating on getting that better first.
Yep. Yeah.
But I was doing rehab and I did have a brace on and we were living up at Mount Buller for the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was up there and after the accident I spent a week in hospital and I did go back to Mount Buller for the rest of the season. And my knee was fine as long as I had my brace on and I was walking up to the summit pretty much every day and sometimes twice a day. So that was, and I was seeing a physio. I was doing online physio sessions, and this was pre-COVID, so it was quite novel to do online physio sessions back then, whereas now it's quite common.
Yeah. Fast forward into where you're at now. So, subject cyclists taking you out, you're doing pretty well in your running, and the knee's feeling really good and stable.
Yeah, the knee feels very good. It feels strong. Both knees feel really strong and really good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was getting a little bit of patella pain for a while and I was just strapping my kneecap to one side was helping with that. But that is slowly getting better and it was just because one muscle on one side of the knee is stronger than the other and it was pulling the kneecap in the wrong position.
Yeah.
But other than that, it feels really good and I don't tend to strap it now. Occasionally I strap it on my longer runs, and I'm only just getting back into the longer runs now.
Yeah,
but I have. I'm
you
not.
Take the girls with you.
I do take my teenage girls with me. Yesterday we did 11 Ks together, and then I have booked in for the half Melbourne Marathon.
Oh, okay.
I won't be fast, but I will do it.
I've got some questions from our Facebook group, ACL, a meniscus tear recovery without surgery group, because I really want to get people to be able to ask this to be an opportunity to people to hear about your experience and answer any of their questions or concerns around it. One that I get asked a lot, particularly, is here from Justice for Lucy Pinnon. I'm guessing that's not their name, but a campaign. But they've asked what exercises helped, I guess, in terms of your rehab once you were out. Well, even to a degree whilst you're still in the brace. But were there any kind of key ones that you found really helpful in getting your knee strong and stable?
Yeah, definitely hamstrings. So when we did the rehab program, what we did notice, my hamstrings on both sides were actually really weak. So getting my hamstrings stronger, I found that difficult. I found it much easier to get my quads stronger. Yeah. So I think getting your quads strong is really important. But for me, the hamstrings were something I never knew I had weak hamstrings. And they were much weaker than they should have been.
Yeah. Yeah, actually exactly the same I found. And I do find it easier to, when you setting the weights up and stuff and monitoring your progress, building quad strength feels a lot easier than hamstring. Feels like a lot more suffering goes on there when you're in the curl versus extension machines, and you feel like it's kind of like hamstrings feel like they're more likely to blow than you. Never really had that with quads. And were there any specific kind of exercise that you were doing, maybe that you wouldn't typically do in the gym, or that you wouldn't have done pre-injury?
I was doing lots, but I don't really know what they're called. But yeah, mainly exercises to work on my quads, hamstrings, and lots of calf raises, single leg calf raises.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know what they're called. So
Yeah. Is it seated calf raises that have you focused on as well?
no, standing.
Yeah.
So single leg with weights on my shoulders.
Yep.
And then starting off doing 2 legs, because at the start I was too weak to do 1 leg. And then so just doing 2 legs and then going into 1 leg calf raises.
Yeah. And was the hamstring... So I think this is a thing that not too many people focus on so much, and one of the risks with rehab, was one of the focuses that they get your hamstrings and your quad, their relative strength to be similar?
Yes. So...
There's not an imbalance.
Yeah, so there's not an imbalance. And also we were sort of comparing it to my good leg. You know, so we wanted to balance each leg to the same strength. Yeah.
Did you get back to 100% equal strength, or was it a lot of people aim for 90?
Yeah, I would say between 90 and 95% I am.
Yeah.
But look, I haven't done a test like that since pre-Christmas.
Yep.
End of November.
Yep.
Start of December. So it'd be interesting to see, because really I think now I would be 2 months on, I would be a lot stronger because I've been doing a lot more running.
Yeah.
As well as still doing physio exercises.
Yeah.
But I think the running is making me a lot stronger too.
Yeah. We have one here from the master admin of this group. Are you in this group?
No, but I'll join it. I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, there's like 19,000 members in it. ACL plus meniscus tear recovery about surgery. You're famous on it now because I've been posting pictures of you.
Oh, gosh.
And so the admin and Sean on there, Sean O'Keefe, who's remarkable, he replies to literally every comment anyone ever posts with advice and feedbacks. He's a physio. There's a group of physios that run this group, and they provide incredible advice. He asks, so after undertaking the ACLR for her collateral knee originally, did she face... So he's obviously aware. I think I posted that, Pep, who had previously had surgery on another ACL, so he's referencing that. Did you face much backlash from your GP and or ortho when deciding to participate in the cross-bracing protocol trial this time? We've kind of covered that. Interested to see if you're a GP or your...
I'll give you a quick response, and that is actually the day after I got back from Japan, I went and saw the orthopaedic surgeon that I saw for my initial surgery. And at the time, because I hadn't had any... I was in the brace, and he... at the time, we just thought, well, stick to the brace, see how you go, and see... At that stage, I wasn't in the bracing protocol.
I was going to say, so you were in the 30 to 90 range brace.
Yes. So I think we just decided to see if I had any instability.
Okay. So he was pretty open to...
So I think I took the brace off when I wasn't walking around. This was before I got onto the bracing, so there was a week in between, and I hadn't had any instability moments during that time. And I think I had just a general chat with him. It wasn't to go in and say I need the surgery. It was like just a general chat, and we decided. I mean, I'm 49 now, so I think we decided that, look, let's just see how you go. You know, have a ski in the season, go for runs, just see how you go and see how you go with it.
Yeah. Because
a lot of surgeons don't want to operate on someone, you know, in their 40s anymore anyway.
Right, okay. But you'd said that you wanted to get back to your kind of fully functioning life at that stage, because that can be the point where, you know, even you reference it at the start, without an ACL you can't do certain activities. That's the perception. So were you kind of at that stage going, oh, okay, well, I'm willing to adjust my lifestyle a bit?
Yeah, well, no, I wasn't, because I wasn't willing to adjust my lifestyle. But
And
I
he
just
was
sort of
still
thought,
supportive.
look, let's just see how I go. But I thought in the back of my head that I would still be, I'd still go down this method. But it was at the time in between having the MRI result and seeing the physio about the program to go on. There was a few days.
Yeah.
So then when I came home from the physio and I went back home and said to my husband, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this cross-bracing method. And then I know he did speak to the surgeon and go, what do you know about this? And look, the surgeon was quite open-minded about it and said, look, she's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So he was quite open-minded about it. And
So did they have the results? Because you were phase 2 trial. Mm-hmm. It sounds a bit... But did they have the results from the first phase at that stage?
Yes, I did Google them, I think.
Yeah.
I think I did look them up, or maybe it was just that I was told by someone I trusted, whether it was the radiologist I knew or whether I think he'd told me that they're having some really positive high % chance. And then I did have a session with Tom Cross, and he was showing me the results, letting me know. And then he said, look, I think we've got a 80% chance of it healing. 80, maybe it was even a bit higher than that. I can't quite remember.
Yeah. So he was actually, that was relative to your injury, you said?
Yes, that was relative to with him looking at how I'd done it and looking at the MRI and my physio had been feeling it, because obviously Tom and I spoke over Zoom because he's up in Sydney. Yeah. And I was down in Melbourne.
Yeah. Because that's probably the gap that we have right now, right? Like we're learning about new options, but understanding what the right one is for the right patient in the context of their life and their specific injury. And no one's really, I guess, able to say, like, operatively or non-operative, which one's the right option for you. I know Dr. Stephanie Philbay at Melbourne Uni, they've kind of come up with an online guide, but it's more, filling a big gap, like a huge need that we have of providing people more balanced information around the multiple options. But still, I think from a patient perspective, you kind of want someone just to go, well, I'm a medical expert. This is what you should do.
Yeah.
These are your... So it's quite good that he was willing to... Because people can be a bit flaky around that. For him to say you've got an 80% chance or an 85% chance based on your injury and your situation, that's something that doesn't really seem to be out there. So, incredible stuff that Dr. Tom Cross is achieving in the field. Seems to be very grateful that he's...
Oh, absolutely.
He's broken this ground.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually. And all the work that's been put into it, all the, collating all the research, it is amazing. And it's amazing. And, you mention this to people and they don't believe you.
Yeah.
No, people go, oh, that can't work. That can't be true.
Yeah.
But look, here is the evidence. It is true.
Yeah. In 2023, people don't really accept that we could be, changing the face of how knee injuries ACL injuries are managed, but you're pretty much, and I'm also kind of living proof that there are other ways and other pathways that people can consider. Another one that we have kind of answered to a degree, should have asked these first, but worded slightly different. Mishuk Hall asks, any complication following CBPT, 3-month bracing, tend to lead to muscle wasting and joint deformity. How did you manage that? Do you have any joint deformity?
Oh, I haven't heard about any joint deformity. I don't think that's been really something raised with me, but unless they call it something else. No issues there at all. I mean, obviously, of course, my knee's not going to be I'm not going to have as much muscle around my knee as if I wasn't in a brace and went straight into a rehab program. But it's nothing I couldn't get back.
Yeah. So you have managed to get that kind of muscle mass and strength back to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I actually struggled with that a lot post-operatively on my... but I don't know whether I was going hard enough because I was like protecting the ACL. So like leg extension machine, there was still that... This is again another one of those that like a few years ago that was still considered a big risk to be on a leg extension machine. And so I was always kind of going higher reps and less weight. And now with not having an ACL there, or I might have a healed ACL, who knows? I really attacked it and was every week like trying to increase my PB and really building that strength. And like, yeah, that was a lot easier for me without having surgery. Whereas, yeah, my muscle wastage was huge, both from the injury and then from the surgery. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely muscle wastage, but it's if you do the work. I mean, in tests I was 90 to 95%. Back to the same as my other knee.
Did you keep working your non-injured
yes
knee during it as well?
Yeah,
it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no point measuring
no, because you want that one to get stronger anyway.
Yeah.
So it was just that I was doing both legs.
Yep.
But I was doing my injured leg more.
Yep. Yeah.
To try and catch up.
Yeah. And how does your kind of, you say, obviously back to doing more normal activity in terms of your running and your skiing and stuff, you obviously put a lot of time into your rehab. Are you just kind of maintaining now? Is less gym sessions, less physio, less rehab?
I admit I do struggle with the gym. I was doing the gym. My husband goes to the gym almost every day at 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And I struggle to do that. I've never been a gym person, and when I've got a reason to be there for like rehab reasons, I was there.
Yeah.
But then the better I was becoming, the stronger I was becoming, I felt less motivation to go. And as soon as I could start running or even, walking more at a fast pace and then it turning into the running, that is when my gym sessions dropped down, and then I did the rehab at home and then at the gym at the physio with the physio.
Yeah.
But to be honest, now I just tend to do the running, and I'm doing a few calf raises at the moment just because I was listening to a podcast about how to improve running, and they said you need strong calves.
Calves are God when it comes to preventing injuries as well. Like if they absorb the impact first, then the rest of your body doesn't take the same strain, right? So yeah. I lucky. I had a calf injury before the season before my knee injury, and again, it's quite a transformative approach to how they're managing calf injuries. My physio was like, you just got to really build that strength so it's way stronger than it ever was before across both your calves, and then don't just kind of, people used to just go jogging and gradually build up your distance, right? That's how you build it. So it's like, no, forget that. You need to build your strength first, and then you build the stamina into the muscle. And I found that's such a huge part of, getting back into rehab is like having, with my knee injury, is it just makes everything easier. You're hopping, you're if you land properly.
Yeah.
Unlike when your knee gets isolated in certain instances, like when you're in skis, or like for me, with twisted my knee in the ground, like there's things your calf can't save you from, but it can save you from a lot of other kind of injuries where it absorbs the force.
That's true.
Our final listener question. So this is from My ACL Journey 2023, and the question is, what do you think the main contributor to a successful heal was? I'm guessing the bracing process.
Yeah, obviously the bracing process, but being really religious and strict about it.
Yeah.
Don't try and do too much. Be really consistent. And, when you're told to keep it in the brace at 90 degrees locked, do exactly what you're told to do, and then do your rehab. Like it's, if you've got your physio telling you to do X, Y, and Z exercises, do exactly what they've told you to do.
Yep.
That's if they know, about the cross-bracing program, obviously.
Exactly the same with the non-operative, though.
Yes.
I think this could become a very boring show if I go into this too much, but speaking to physios, the biggest frustration they have, and this will be the absolute reason why most people's rehab fails with going non-operative, whether it's cross-bracing or not, is they don't rehab hard enough and religiously enough in terms of, for me it was 3 times a week, so get the recovery period right, the diet right around that, and every single session was progressively challenging, but also not to the point where I was risking re-injury, right? Those simple principles of there's no point, regardless, I think, of what decision you make and which option pathway you go down, if you're not going to commit to it, then you're probably going to get injured again.
Well, that's
hard
right.
To say, but...
And I think too, it's if you want a good result, you have to be consistent with it.
Yeah.
I also I really enjoy exercising, and I get a lot out of it. You know, from a mental health point of view to just feeling alive and, you know, keeping fit. I like that feeling. So, I'm nowhere near a professional runner, but I enjoy running. It's a thing I like to do. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So getting back to it was really important to me. And also I've got teenagers that I love to see them get into their sport and exercise and their running, and I wanted to be able to do that with them as well. So I felt like I had a really strong drive to get back to where I was.
Yeah.
And I've had so many of my friends do their ACL skiing and you never see them ski again. And I didn't want to be that person.
Yeah. I
want to enjoy time skiing with my kids and having fun and going for runs and, you know, still being able to do exactly. I was determined to be able to do what I was doing before the injury.
Yeah. The return to sport rates are still sadly very low, particularly I think in women's sport.
Yeah.
I think the return is really low, so it's particularly important why we're kind of looking and discussing alternative pathways that are going to have better outcomes for patients.
Well, I think with women, I mean, probably maybe men too, but I just tend to speak to more women that have done their ACLs. So I think with women, one, when they're my age, in their 40s, they don't want it to go through that process again. So that's one reason they don't get back into the sport. And two, if they haven't done their rehab, they feel like they can't get back into sport.
Yeah.
So I think that's why there's a lot of drop off in women. And I think too, women are just very hands-on with family life. And to be out of action for a couple of months is disaster at home.
Yeah.
You know, like it's really hard work.
Yeah. And that's the reality, right? Priorities. You can't just move them around too much and fit your rehab into around your lifestyle is challenging. In terms of, and obviously you tell people like your experience as well, for someone else who's looking at their options, do you kind of see it as, you know, if you can do it, definitely give this a go? Or do you balance it and go, oh, well, there's pros to cross-bracing and some negatives as well, or do you not really have any?
Well, I think it's important what they do in their life, because if they don't do activities, really sporty activities where they need the ACL, or, you know, they could probably just do whatever they wanted to do, right? But if they've got goals, I think they need to work out what they want to achieve after their injury.
Yeah.
But look, I just sort of think, I mean, if I did my ACL again, I know exactly what I'd be doing. I'd going straight to that cross-bracing method, because for me, I didn't take a day off work. I had no pain medication. It was relatively easy. You know, I had 2 weeks or probably 4 weeks where it was a little bit difficult in the brace, where it was locked and you can't put your foot on the ground. Other than that, that was the hardest part. And it's such a short time in your long-term recovery anyway. Yeah. So I think I would encourage people to look at that Tom Cross bracing method personally, because if they can get into the brace within that time period they require after the injury, I just think you've got nothing to lose. If you end up with a healed ACL and you haven't had to go through surgery, why wouldn't you do that method?
Yeah.
Look, I don't know enough about just doing the physio method, and I don't know enough about that side just to say just do your rehab and you'll be okay.
Because it's a really good podcast that you could listen to.
I will now.
And hopefully other people kind of get to that same stage as well.
And I, you know, like as I say, I do see it as a really good option for people. I just think it's worth a try.
Yeah. Do you think people could do it themselves? Like, obviously, you did it as part of a trial study, but in terms of you can buy a brace that limits online, essentially, or you can hire one.
I think there's too many complications with that.
Yeah.
I think too because, look, I'm not medical, so I can't speak from a medical point of view, but when it was locked in the brace, there were things like I was on blood thinners for why it was locked in a set position. And, whether that's appropriate for you to do, I don't know if everyone goes on that or that was me for that period. There's too many complications to do it on your own. And also going to see that physio every week or, every 2 weeks or whatever it may be, they need to know where your weaknesses are.
Yep.
And they need to know, when to tell you when to adjust it. And
yeah, so it does need to be a guided process.
Oh, absolutely.
So I guess the following is really that we need more physios kind of trained in this process, and that's because really we want it accessible to more people than just in kind of Sydney and Melbourne, right? Like this should be something that's globally available for people, which isn't the case.
Yeah, I think your physio actually has to know about the program.
Yeah.
And essentially be trained by it and know what to look for and know what signs and symptoms and the weaknesses in which muscles, and I think they need to know a lot about the program.
Yeah, yeah. Getting that accessibility out there for people, I think, is the big kind of next step as we continue to see the successful outcomes and refine the process. But yeah, a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's a really exciting improvement in. It's interesting that it can go this way when so many people we've all always believed it couldn't happen.
Yeah. 2023 and the world is changing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot about the body we still don't know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they learnt that with a few other surgeries. I think that tennis elbow was perceived as a required surgery, and now it's pretty much there's no difference that they showed in having surgery or not. So a lot of different cases out there that we're learning a lot of stuff around. So I want to kind of just finish on kind of exploring what if someone's come through this, what you see the kind of future is. I don't know how much you think about the bigger picture of the ACL world, but like the way I kind of see it is like, wow, this is, if people are getting to full strength in their ACL, this is a far better option than surgery, and for those who need that certainty of having an ACL heal, then it probably makes in many ways more sense than just rehabbing alone if that's what you want to achieve. Do you think, well, elite athletes should be doing this, everyone should be trying this before surgery? I think from a professional athlete point of view, they've got a lot. The risk is a lot higher because it's still in the trial phases. Yeah. But for someone like me, I just think, why wouldn't you try it? You've got nothing to lose by trying it. Yeah. Before surgery. Yeah. Like the journalist mentioned, popped up that so Sam Kerr, it's obviously ruptured her ACL, and they'd kind of suggested that she might consider taking on. And the physio that was quoted actually said it's a risky, in the same context and reasons you did, and that I agree with, because there's not the body of evidence out there. I believe 12 professional athletes have actually, or at least elite athletes have been through the process and returned to sport through it. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, it would be great to have more elite athletes do it from a marketing point of view, you know, to say, look, hey, because it will get the worldwide attention. Yeah. And it does work. And they are getting really successful results. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that. Yeah. Have you met many other people that went through the process? I met one at the physio one day. We were just introduced, and they were there for an appointment at the same time I was there. That's pretty big coincidence. Yeah. Well, I go to a physio that is aligned with... Right. I see Jane Rooney, who she's done a lot of work in this study and trial and works with Tom Cross very closely. Right, okay. Yeah. Okay, well, amazing to meet you and speak to you. And, hopefully don't see you limping around for any reason other than cyclists wiping you out in the future. And, Yeah, all the best with the rest of your, enjoying your knee.
Yes, thank you, and all the best with your recovery, which is, and it's 9 months now, right?
Yeah, 9 months, yeah. So, all going well. Knee feels very normal.
Yes.
Which is
I mean,
nice
that's the
feeling, right?
aim, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we can high-five each other.
Yeah.